NASA withholds physical proof of UFOs. That NASA has been engaged in UFO research behind the scenes is proven by its shady involvement in the analysis of metal samples discovered at the site where Sergeant Lonnie Zamora encountered a landed UFO and occupants at Socorro, New Mexico in April 1964. See the previous video on this event. On 31 July 1964, Ray Stanford and some members of NICAP visited NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, in order to have a rock with particles of metal on it analyzed by NASA scientists. Dr. Henry Franco, head of the Spacecraft Systems Branch, directed the analysis. The particles had apparently been scraped onto the rock by one of the UFO's landing legs. On first inspection of the rock through a microscope, Dr. Franco declared that some of the particles looked like they may have been in a molten state when scraped onto the rock, and expressed the desire to remove them from the rock for further analysis. Stanford agreed to this, but said that he wanted to retain half of the particles for his own use. The researchers were invited to go to lunch while NASA engineers conducted their analysis. After lunch, Stanford and the others, Richard Hall, Robert McGarry, and Walter Webb, returned to the laboratory building. A NASA technician brought the rock over to the group. Stanford would go on to say, "As he handed it to me, I was able to carefully observe it in the bright light inside the room. The whole thing had been scraped clean. Someone had gone over that rock with the equivalent of a fine-tooth comb. There was nothing, not a speck of metal left. Even the very few tiny particles that I had known were rather well hidden had been removed." When Stanford complained, the technician insisted that half of the samples were still on the rock, as promised, but seeing Stanford's disbelief, hastily left the room. Dr. Franco then returned. After Stanford had remonstrated with him, explained what had happened, he said, "Well, we tried to leave you some, but we also had to get enough to make an accurate analysis. The sample will be placed under radiation this afternoon, where it will remain the entire weekend. Monday, we will remove it for X-ray diffraction tests. That should tell us the elements it contains. If you will call me, say on Wednesday, I should be able to tell you something very definite." Before contacting Dr. Franco again, Stanford and McGarry had a meeting with the U.S. Navy captain in Washington who was interested in the Socorro case. The captain told the researchers that he would never get their metal samples back from Franco. He told them, "If that metal is in any way unusual, he will never give you any documentation to prove it. Those boys at Goddard know that they must report any findings as important as a strange UFO alloy to the highest authority in NASA. Once that authority receives the news, the president will be informed, for the matter is pertinent to national security and stability. A security directive will instruct those self-appointed authorities at Goddard as to just whose hands the matter is really in." On 5 August 1964, Ray Stanford phoned Dr. Franco at the Goddard Space Flight Center. The scientist said, "I'm glad you called. I have some news that I think will make you happy. The particles are comprised of a material that could not occur naturally. Specifically, it consists predominantly of two metallic elements, and there is something that is rather exciting about the zinc-iron alloy of which we find the particles to consist. Our charts of all alloys known to be manufactured on Earth, the USSR included, do not show any alloy of the specific combination or ratio of the two main elements involved here. This finding definitely strengthens the case that might be made for the extraterrestrial origin of the Socorro object." Dr. Franco added that the alloy would make, quote, "an excellent, highly malleable, and corrosive-resistant coating for spacecraft landing gear, or for about anything where those qualities are needed," end quote. He also said that he was prepared to make a statement before the congressional hearing to this effect if necessary. Franco went on to say that the further analysis would be carried out and that Stanford should call him again the following week. On 12 August, Stanford placed a call to Franco, but was told by his secretary that he was not available and suggested he try contacting him the following day. On 13 August, Stanford phoned again. This time the secretary told him, "Dr. Franco simply is not available today. He wonders if you might try him the first part of next week." On 17 August, Stanford rang Franco's office, only to be told yet again that he was not available. Ominously, the secretary added, "Dr. Franco is unprepared at this time to discuss the information you are calling about." On 18 August, Stanford tried again. This time, the secretary said, "I'm sorry, but Dr. Franco is in a top-level security conference. I doubt that he will be able to talk with you until tomorrow or the next day." Failing to get a hold of Franco the following day, Stanford left a telephone number with the secretary. On the 20th of August, Thomas P. Sciacca Jr. of NASA's Spacecraft Systems branch phoned Stanford. In this call, he told him, "I've been appointed to call you and report the official conclusion of the Socorro sample analysis. Dr. Franco is no longer involved in the matter, so in response to your repeated inquiries, I wanted to tell you the results of the analysis. Everything you were told earlier by Dr. Franco was a mistake. The sample was determined to be silica, SiO2. In 1967, Dr. J. Allen Heineck invited Ray Stanford to a lecture he was giving in Phoenix, and afterward Heineck asked, "Whatever happened with the analysis at Goddard of that metallic sample from the rock you took from the Socorro site?" Both Heineck and Stanford had been closely involved in the investigations of the landing site as to how Dr. Heineck knew about the NASA analysis. Stanford later said, "I was not sure where Heineck had learned of the fact that I had taken the rock which Lonnie Zamora had pointed out to both of us, and which the astronomer had ignored. I was interested to note that he specifically knew it was analyzed at Goddard. That fact had never been published." Stanford told Heineck that NASA's official analysis had revealed it to be common silica, to which Heineck exclaimed, "That cannot be true. I am familiar with the analysis techniques involved. Silica could not be mistaken for a zinc-iron alloy. They haven't given you the truth. I would accept Franco's original report and forget the later disclaimer." Given that the original analysis was accurate, it was worth recording NASA Administrator Dr. Robert Frost's statement in the letter he wrote to President Carter's science advisor, Dr. Frank Press, in 1977. "There is an absence of tangible or physical evidence available for thorough laboratory analysis. To proceed, therefore, on a research task without the disciplinary framework and the exploratory technique in mind would be wasteful and probably unproductive." Resources: Above Top Secret, Timothy Good, 1988. My take: some of those people at NASA got to Goddard and buried the truth. I do not think the government will ever come 100% clean about UFOs. Don't forget to sign up for the Patreon page. Members get early access to videos, ad-free, and you can watch content you will not find anywhere else.